This is a Saturday night stream, so no music tonight. We'd like to keep the VOD available to everybody, and sometimes, unfortunately, even when you make your own music, actually, especially when you make your own music, you have to deal with copyright claims and stuff like that. So, yeah. It's like, who did you license this music from? But I made it! No, you didn't. It's just a huge headache. So we're going to pop out the chats here. And we're going to hit edit video. And we're going to make sure we're all set up for tonight's Moby Dick reading stream. And live reaction, slow mode. Turn that on. Go modify the description to remove that. Watermark bit. And add that this is a Minecraft stream. Gaming. Minecraft. Whoops. Minecraft. Woo. Welcome, Jove2K, AIY Kitty Q, Kai Farem, Sydney, Calvin, Kinsey. Are we actually going to read the whole book? Well, not in one night. We have been reading Moby Dick for a while. We've read all of Dracula. It took about a year. So one Saturday at a time. Okay. So. This is... Uh-oh. I can tell folding at home is still running. Time to pause folding and open VLC, although we don't want to play music, so we're going to close VLC so we don't accidentally play music. But yeah, anybody who'd like to join the HermitCraft Folding at Home group, it's a great time of year for it. Very cold out. Good time to put your computer to use, helping scientists parse models. Okay, let's see. Get my inbox open here so we can see if any tips roll in. We need to set our what we're reading link. So let me open up good old Project Gutenberg to Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Okay. Now, the last chapter that we concluded was... Let's see, we did leg and arm, and then we did the decanter. I don't think... Oh, yeah. We're about to get into a bunch of stuff about whales. These are the most Ishmael, like, Wikipedia chapters. So, yeah, what we're reading, I need to get that link pinned. What we're reading, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee, bum-bum-bum-bum-bum. Welcome, Silver Wolf. Welcome, TB Continued. Glad you could join us. Okay. So we paused folding. We closed VLC. So next up, let's go ahead and put down our die box here. We're going to put all of those back in there. Put that away. Put that away. That away. Open up the toolbox. We're going to grab our shovel. And then we are going to... Let's grab a bunch of those surplus shulkers from upstairs and take them over to Hermit Homedale. I think we can do some digging this stream because the TCG card stock stacking has been going pretty well. We've got 28 effect packs, 28 item packs, 28 hermit packs. We still have to do the booster packs because I had to write a randomization script for those, which I have not done yet. But that's not hard. That's just I haven't had time because I've been working on editing this episode. I think that's going to be out of scope for this episode. But yeah, we've got everything coming along pretty well here, I think. So let's head over to Hermit Homedale. And we're going to start working on our mining. Welcome, Mini Zoikins. And reading chapter 102 of Moby Dick. If you've never seen a Joe Hills stream before, you might not realize that this is a viewer-supported stream. I don't have a contract with Twitch, so there's no subs or bits, but viewers support the show via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat, which I should probably post a link to as well. Wait, did this not pin the what we're reading? Yeah, okay, there it is. Cool. But yeah, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. When we hit certain tipping milestones, the camera gets bigger. We are currently $18 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Oh yeah, we had a stream earlier. So the camera's already fairly reasonably sized. You know, looks okay, I think. So yeah, there we go. We're still setting up the stream now until we get over. Oh no! I was gonna bring all those empty shulkers. It's not worth it. We've come too far. I'm not going back for those. That does mean, though, we will need to grab extra chests if we can get them. From anywhere we can get them from. Okay, that's a lot of dirt. Let's see, did we leave some extra logs over here, maybe? Okay, we got 2 extra chests. That's not gonna cut it for this stream. We got a lot going on. Okay, these road supplies need to go in there for right now. Okay. Let's go check on the beacon over here. Maybe we left some extra stuff. Welcome, Red Velvet Rabbit. Okay. We are about to start reading Moby Dick. I am just gathering a few materials. Oh, look at that. Double logs. Yeah, okay. And 13 chests? Yes, please. Okay. I feel like what we want to do is maybe we want to grab that box we just put in here that had some extra spots in it. And we're going to put a whole bunch of these into that box because we need so much spruce. And that way we'll have it. Why did I spell Homedale wrong there? Okay, and then we're going to decompress this into chests as well. Okay. Bye-bye extra planks. Okay. Let's go. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start mining this out and read Moby Dick. I've already posted and pinned the What We're Reading link, so you can find that there in the top of the chat. Okay. It is inconvenient that we don't have a great place to dump all these chests. Oh, actually, we're going to use this area here. This is going to be our drop-off. Welcome, I am Silly Business. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we're going to put those there for right now. Then we're going to set our spawn here. Welcome, Anna Lorena. Welcome, Stygian, tonight. I think I'm almost set up. Oh, wait, I still need to reopen Discord. I closed Discord when I walked away from the computer earlier. Okay. Did anybody catch Tango's stream today? I popped in on Tango's stream. And I was really excited by his new mod he got for Satisfactory. Somebody in his community made a mod of Tango's mug and put it in the big Satisfactory mod repo. And I was like, I've been on the fence about modding Satisfactory for a while now. But this is what pushed me over the edge. I went and I downloaded the mod loader. And so I'm going to have Tango Tech's mug for my Monday Satisfactory stream. If you haven't checked out my stream schedule, you might not realize that this Monday, starting at around 10:45 a.m. Central Time, I'm going to be streaming Satisfactory. The name of the stream is, oh my gosh, hold on. That's not the name of the stream. Apparently I took my shoes off underneath the desk, and I kept kicking my shoes. And I was like, what are those? Why is there something under my desk? Yeah, so the name of the stream is, the Joe Rinch Stole Fixmas. Because I am going to be trying something different with the webcam. And I am going to be stealing Fixmas, which is the holiday event from Satisfactory. It runs from like December 1st until like January 18th. And I'm busy today and tomorrow. But Monday, I'm basically going to go dismantle all the Christmas stuff. While delighting and destroying it all. Maybe I'll learn something. We'll have to see. Okay. So. I think I'm ready to go. I'm shifting gears. We just rushed home from the coffee shop where I was editing, and my daughter and spouse were reading, and like it's kind of hard sometimes going from like being outside in the cold to like sitting here at the desk. But luckily it's very cold looking in this part of Minecraft, so I'm sure I'll manage. Alrighty. So I think we are all set up. So we're gonna get into chapter 102, a bower in the Aracides, and we're really gonna get into Ishmael justifying why he knows so much about whales. We're 102 chapters in, and the speaker is finally gonna be like, so you guys might think it's weird that I know so much about whales, but let me tell you what. So if you don't want to just be told about whales, but be told about why you're being told about whales and by whom, this is the chapter for you. Welcome, Devin Hendricks. So, Wikipedia time, says Kai Ferem. Okay. So, chapter 102, a bower in the Aracides. And I'm going to take down the setting up now sign because we are all set up. Hitherto, in my indescriptively treating of the sperm whale, I have chiefly dwelt upon the marvels of his outer aspect, or separately and in detail upon some few interior structural features, but to a large and thorough sweeping comprehension of him, it behooves me now to unbutton him still further, and, untagging the points of his hose, unbuckling his garters, and casting loose the hooks and eyes of the joints of his innermost bones, set him before you in his ultimatum. That is to say, in his unconditional skeleton. But how now, Ishmael? How is it that you, a mere oarsman in the fishery, pretend to know aught about the subterranean parts of the whale? Did erudite Stubb, mounted upon your capstan, deliver lectures on the anatomy of the cetacea, and, by help of the windlass, hold up a specimen rib for exhibition? Explain thyself, Ishmael. Can you land a full-grown whale on your deck for examination, as a cook does a roast pig? Surely not. A veritable witness have you hitherto been, Ishmael, but have a care how you seize the privilege of Jonah alone, the privilege of discoursing upon the joists and beams, the rafters, ridgepoles, sleepers, and underpinnings, making up the framework of the Leviathan, and belike of the tallow vats, dairy rooms, butteries, and cheeseries in his bowels. I confess that since Jonah, few whalemen have penetrated very far beneath the skin of the adult whale. Nevertheless, I have been blessed with an opportunity to dissect him in miniature. In a ship I belonged to, a small cub sperm whale was once bodily hoisted to the deck of it for his poke or bag, to make sheaths for the barbs of the harpoons, and for the heads of the lances. Think you I let that chance go without using my boat hatchet and jackknife and breaking the seal and reading the contents of that young cub? As for my exact knowledge of the bones of the Leviathan in their gigantic, full-grown development, for that rare knowledge I am indebted to my late royal friend Tranquo, King of Trank, of the Arocides, for being at Trank years ago. When attached to the trading ship Day of Algiers, I was invited to spend part of the Arocidian holidays with the Lord of Trank at his retired palm villa at Pupella, a seaside glen not very far distant from what our sailors called Bamboo Town, his capital. Among many other fine qualities, my royal friend Tranquo, being gifted with a devout love for all matters of barbaric virtue, had brought together in Pupella whatever rare things the more ingenious of his people could invent, chiefly carved woods of wonderful devices, chiseled shells, inlaid spears, costly paddles, aromatic canoes, and all these distributed among whatever natural wonders the wonder-freighted tribute-rendering waves had cast upon his shores. Chief among these latter was a great sperm whale, which, after an unusually long raging gale, had been found dead and stranded, with his head against a coconut tree, whose plumage-like tufted droopings seemed his verdant jet. When the body had at last been stripped of its fathom-deep enfoldings, and the bones become dust-dry in the sun, then the skeleton was carefully transported up the Pupella Glen, where a grand temple of lordly palms now sheltered it. The ribs were hung with trophies. The vertebrae were carved with Arocidian annals in strange hieroglyphics. In the skull, the priest kept up an unextinguished aromatic flame, so that the mystic head again sent forth its vapory spout, while suspended from a bough, the terrific lower jaw vibrated over all the devotees like a hair-hung sword that so affrighted Damocles. It was a wondrous sight. The wood was green as mosses of the icy glen. The trees stood high and haughty, feeling their living sap. The industrious earth beneath was as a weaver's loom, with a gorgeous carpet on it, whereof the ground vine tendrils formed the warp and woof, and the living flowers the figures. All the trees, with all their laden branches, all the shrubs and ferns and grasses, the message-carrying air, all these increasingly were active, or unceasingly were active. Through the lacings of the leaves, the great sun seemed a long flying shuttle, weaving the unwearied verdure. O busy weaver, unseen weaver, pause. One word. Whither flows the fabric? What palace may it deck? Wherefore all these ceaseless toilings? Speak, weaver, stay thy hand, but one single word with thee. Nay, the shuttle flies, the figures float from forth the loom, the freshet running carpet forever slides away. The weaver god he weaves, and by that weaving he is deafened, that he hears no mortal voice, and by that humming we too who look on the loom are deafened, and only when we escape it shall we hear the thousand voices that speak through it. For even so it is in all material factories. These spoken words that are inaudible among the flying spindles, these same words are plainly heard without the walls, bursting from the unopened casements. Thereby have villainies been detected. Ah, mortal, then be heedful, for so in all this din of the great world's loom, thy subtlest thinkings may be overheard afar. Now, amid the green, life-restless loom of that Aricidian wood, the great white worship skeleton lay lounging, a gigantic idler. Yet, as the ever-woven verdant warp and woof intermixed and hummed around him, the mighty idler seemed the cunning weaver, himself all woven over with the vines, every month assuming greener, fresher verdure, but himself a skeleton. Life folded death. Death trellised life. The grim god wived with youthful life, and begot him curly-headed glories. Now when with royal tranquo I visited this wondrous whale, and saw the skull and altar, and the artificial smoke ascending from where the real jet had issued, I marveled that the king should regard a chapel as an object of virtue. He laughed, but more I marveled that the priest should swear that the smoky jet of his was genuine. To and fro I paced before this skeleton, brushed the vines aside, broke through the ribs, and with a ball of Aricidian twine wandered, eddied long amid its many winding, shaded colonnades and arbors. But soon my line was out, and following it back, I emerged from the opening where I entered. I saw no living thing within. Naught was there but bones. Cutting me a green measuring rod, I once more dived within the skeleton. From their arrow slit in the skull, the priests perceived me taking the altitude of the final rib. "Oh no!" they shouted. "Darest thou measure this, our god? That's for us." "Ah, priests, well, how long do you make him then?" But hereupon a fierce contest rose among them, concerning feet and inches. They cracked each other's sconces with their yardsticks, the great skull echoed, and seizing the lucky chance, I quickly concluded my own admeasurements. These admeasurements I now propose to set before you. But first, be it recorded that in this matter, I am not free to mutter any fancied measurement as I please, because there are skeleton authorities that you can refer to and test my accuracy. There is a Leviathanic museum, they tell me, in Hull, England, one of the whaling ports of that country, where they do have some fine specimens of finbacks and other whales. Likewise, I have heard that in the Museum of Manchester, in New Hampshire, they have what the proprietors call the only perfect specimen of a Greenland or river whale in the United States. Moreover, at a place in Yorkshire, England, Burton Constable by name, a certain Sir Clifford Constable has in his possession the skeleton of a sperm whale, but of moderate size, by no means of the full-grown magnitude of my friend King Tranquil's. In both cases, the stranded whales to which these two skeletons belonged were originally claimed by their proprietors, who were originally seized by their proprietors upon similar grounds. King Tranquil seized his because he wanted it, and Sir Clifford because he was lord of the seigneurs of those parts. Sir Clifford's whale had been articulated throughout, so that like a great chest of drawers, you can open and shut him. In all his bony cavities, spread out his ribs like a gigantic fan, and swing all day upon his lower jaw. Locks are to be put upon some of his trap doors and shutters, and a footman will show round future visitors with a bunch of keys at his side. Sir Clifford thinks of charging twopence for a peep at the whispering gallery in the spinal column, threepence to hear the echo in the hollow of the cerebellum, and sixpence for the unrivaled view from his forehead. The skeleton dimensions I shall now proceed to set down are copied verbatim from my right arm, where I had them tattooed, as in my wild wanderings at that period, there was no other secure way of preserving such valuable statistics. But, as I was crowded for space, and wished the other parts of my body to remain a blank page for a poem I was then composing, at least what untattooed parts might remain, I did not trouble myself with the odd inches, nor indeed should inches at all measure into a congenial admeasurement of the whale. And that concludes chapter 102 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. So, what do you think of that, y'all? You've been envisioning Ishmael a certain way this whole time. Did you think he was covered in tattoos? Here's what I think. I don't think he was covered in tattoos at the time that the main story takes place. I think that was something that was inspired by Queequeg during the main story and has happened since the adventure on the Pequod. But I will say there is I love the idea of people taking notes via tattoos because it's the only way they won't lose them. There's a character in a Brandon Sanderson book who does that. But you know what? Ishmael did it first. Ishmael always did it first. Mailman Dave says, "Stop measuring the Leviathan, Ishmael! It's blasphemy!" Yeah, I should read all priestly voices in stories like this, like Napoleon Dynamite. Oh my god, stop measuring the whale. It's blasphemy. That's a little bit too Valley Girl, I think. Kai Ferem says, I did not imagine the tattoos, but I guess that would track for a sailor. Whale stat tattoo is crazy, says Devin Hendricks. Yeah, if you were planning on dressing as Ishmael for Halloween, make sure you get your tattoos right. Gotta have your whale stats on your right arm. If y'all are enjoying this reading, just as a reminder, tips are welcome via paypal.me/Joe Hills and YouTube Super Chat. Verpitas says, few modern museums have the courage to barter more deer for varied perspectives of exhibits. Yeah, that's fair. You gotta keep in mind a lot of those, like, museums back then were kind of more like freak show type setups, where it was more of a circus atmosphere, you know what I mean? So, okay. Real quick, we're going to be moving over to chapter 103 soon. So I need to adjust the what we're reading link to reflect that. And I need to repin it. It looks like the Twitch one came down. Twitch automatically takes down pinned messages unless you click a bunch of extra stuff, which I thought I had done. But apparently it didn't take. So there we go. We're going to also replace the pin on YouTube. Okay. So yeah, for anybody who's just come in, and some people had questions about my face. My face gets bigger when we hit certain tipping milestones. We are $18 away from the next expansion milestone. So anybody who would like to tip and make my face larger, now's a great time to do it. I don't necessarily interrupt sentences or paragraphs or even chapters sometimes, depending on how much momentum I have to acknowledge tips. So if you tip in the middle of a chapter and I wait till the end, please don't be offended. I appreciate your patience, but yeah, we're here to, you're supporting me telling a story for everybody. And I do appreciate the tips, even if I don't always immediately recognize them out loud. I will get to them, I promise. Okay. So yeah. So Ishmael talking about how he knows another king You know, Queequeg was royalty. Now he's just traveling all over the world, hanging out with royalty. This Ishmael, big name dropper, him. But yeah, it is kind of interesting that as much as he's super into whales, he hasn't made the trip to Hull to go see this whale museum in Hull himself. Although I assume, because it's one of those things, like, if he wanted to do it, you know, he has a lot of experience working on vessels. He could basically work his way there, right? He could go to a port that he could basically bridge ports that he knows. You know, like, okay, well, hey, I want to work a stint on a ship going to this port because I know there's a lot of ships between there and Hull, and then I can work on a ship on the way to Hull. You know, I'm not saying, like, oh, it seems like the sort of thing he might prioritize. You know what I mean? So that's just an interesting note, is that as traveled as he claims to be, there are still holes in his experience. But no holes in his experience. Wonder if that's some sort of metaphor. Probably not. I think that's just me pronouncing hull like hole. Oh, we need to also drop off our inventory before we start reading the next thing. Okay. Yeah, so just as a reminder, Monday is a holiday, so I'm not going to be doing my normal streams at the normal time. I'm going to be doing a special satisfactory Joe Wrench Steals Fixmas stream, starting at around, starting shortly before 11 a.m. Central Time. I've got it on my calendar starting at 10:45, but we're probably going to start properly at around 11 Central. Okay. Any other questions or comments about Chapter 102 before we move on to Chapter 103, anybody? Welcome, Brackley, Vermont. My name is Joe Hills. I'm broadcasting live from Nashville, Tennessee. Tonight on the HermitCraft server, we are reading Moby Dick and doing some mountain removal. So welcome, Raiders. We're just about to read Chapter 103. I have pinned that to the top there. Moon Roses says, is Satisfactory's Fixmas event still ongoing? No, that's the point of the Joe Wrench Steals Fixmas stream on Monday. I'm going to... So all the Fixmas event stuff stops working, kind of. It kind of partially... Like, the Christmas trees stopped putting out gifts and stuff. So I'm going to do a huge dismantling of all the Christmas things on stream. Yeah. But yeah, I hope you had a great raid, Brackley. Devin Hendrick says, first time catching a Moby Dick stream. You're inspiring me to get back into reading. Yeah, for anybody who's just coming in, don't worry. Chapter 103 of Moby Dick might sound like, wait, what? I didn't read the first 102 chapters. You don't need to. This book is all over the place. I picked this book because it's not technically a science fiction story, but it more accurately predicts the existence of the internet and Wikipedia than any science fiction book from the 1850s that I've seen. The entire thing is written like a guy at a party walks up to you and starts telling you a story about this time he was on a whaling vessel, but he keeps, like, looking at his phone and referring to Wikipedia. Like, this entire thing is told like a Wikipedia deep dive mixed with a personal story, mixed with occasional random bits that are like, well, this part's just like a forum post. Like, there are chapters in here where people who are very serious about literature are like, I got to the chapter where he's ranking the different types of whales, and I just had to put this book down. I don't even know what this is. And I'm like, I know what this is. This is the same as somebody making a list of the different Spider-Man movies and ranking them. This is a forum post where somebody's arguing about whales. It's even got parts where he's calling out different marine biologists for being wrong about how they rank whales. Like, it's like the whole thing is just the internet 150 years early. And so it's a really interesting book, but you don't really have to have read the whole thing to jump in with us. So, Brackley VT says, last time I read Moby Dick, I think, was back in 2015. That's probably about when I read it last, too. I'm actually rereading it for the first time in about a decade. Because, yeah, first time I read it, my daughter was very young, and she's almost 12 now. So, yeah, it's been a while for me, too. I'm coming back to it. I'm enjoying it. Stu, my guy, says, Joe, just got my top pick for college pre-med. Also, I really like his tattoos. They sound super cool. Yeah, we were just talking about Ishmael's tattoos, Raiders. Ishmael was apparently inspired by Queequeg to cover his body in tattoos after the events in the main story of the book, which we are just finding out now, because he mentioned, he's like, you might be wondering how I managed to keep track of these whale measurements I did. Well, I had them tattooed on myself because my lifestyle was too rough and tumble for anything else. Okay. So, yeah, we are reading and playing Minecraft, clearing out this mountain here to make room for my build, which is that. This is the Bell Laboratories Research and Development Campus from Holmdel, New Jersey, designed by Finnish-American architect Eero Saarinen. Okay. Let's see. Next up, so we're going to make sure we didn't miss any tips. Okay, cool. I'm going to post tipping link one more time, and then we're going to start reading chapter 103. This is a viewer-supported stream. Y'all make it possible for me to do this. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Okay. Chapter 103 of Moby Dick, or the Whale, by Herman Melville. Measurement of the whale's skeleton. In the first place, I wish to lay before you a particular plain statement, touching the living bulk of this Leviathan, whose skeletons we are briefly to exhibit. Such a statement may prove useful here. According to a careful calculation I have made, and which I partly base upon Captain Scoresby's estimate of 70 tons for the largest sized Greenland whale of 60 feet in length. According to my careful calculation, I say a sperm whale of the largest magnitude, between 85 and 90 feet in length, and something less than 40 feet in its fullest circumference, such a whale will weigh at least 90 tons, so that, in reckoning 13 men to a ton, he would considerably outweigh the combined population of a whole village of 1,100 inhabitants. Think you not, then, that brains, like yoked cattle, should be put to this Leviathan, to make him at all budge to any landsman's imagination? Having already in various ways put before you his skull, spout hole, jaw, teeth, forehead, fins, and divers other parts, I shall now simply point out what is most interesting about in the general bulk of his unobstructed bones. But as the colossal skull embraces so very large a proportion of the entire extent of the skeleton, as it is by far the most complicated part, and as nothing is to be repeated concerning it in this chapter, you must not fail to carry it in your mind, or under your arm, as we proceed. Otherwise, you will not gain a complete notion of the general structure we are about to view. In length, the sperm whale's skeleton at Trank measured 72 feet, so that when fully invested and extended in life, he must have been 90 feet long. For in the whale, the skeleton loses about 1/5 in length compared with the living body. Of this 72 feet, his skull and jaw comprise some 20 feet, leaving some 50 feet of plain backbone. Attached to this backbone, for something less than 1/3 of its length, was the mighty circular basket of ribs which once enclosed his vitals. To me, this vast ivory-ribbed chest, with the long, unrelieved spine extending far away from it in a straight line, not a little resembled the hull of a great ship new laid upon the stocks, when only some 20 of her naked bow ribs are inserted. And the keel is otherwise, for the time, but a long, disconnected timber. The ribs were 10 on a side. The first, to begin with, from the deck, was nearly 6 feet long. The second, third, and fourth were each successively longer, till you came to the climax of the fifth, or one of the middle ribs, which measured 8 feet and some inches. From that part, the remaining ribs diminished, till the 10th and last only spanned 5 feet and some inches. In general thickness, they all bore a seemly correspondence to their length. The middle ribs were the most arched. In some of the aracides, they were used for beams whereupon to lay footpath bridges over small streams. In considering these ribs, I could not but be struck anew with the circumstance, so variously repeated in this book, that the skeleton of the whale is by no means the mold of his invested form. The largest of the Trank ribs, one of the middle ones, occupied that part of the fish which, in life, is greatest in depth. Now, the greatest depth of the invested body of this particular whale must have been at least 16 feet, whereas the corresponding rib measured but little more than 8 feet, so that this rib only conveyed half of the true notion of the living magnitude of that part. Besides, for some way, where I now saw but a naked spine, all that had been once wrapped round with tons of added bulk in flesh, muscle, blood, and bowels. Still more for the ample fins. I here saw but a few disordered joints, and in place of the weighty and majestic, but boneless flukes, an utter blank. How vain and foolish, then, thought I, for timid, untraveled man to try to comprehend aright this wondrous whale by merely poring over his dead, attenuated skeleton, stretched out in this peaceful wood. No. Only in the heart of quickest perils, only when within the eddyings of his angry flukes, only on the profound, unbounded sea can the fully invested whale be truly and livingly found out. But the spine, for that, the best we can consider it is with a crane, to pile its bones high up on end. No speedy enterprise. But now it's done, it looks much like Pompey's pillar. There are 40 and odd vertebrae in all, which in the skeletons are not locked together. They mostly lie like the great knobbed blocks on a Gothic spire, forming solid courses of heavy masonry. The largest, a middle one, is in width something less than 3 feet, and in depth more than 4. The smallest, where the spine tapers away into the tail, is only 2 inches in width, and looks something like a white billiard ball. I was told there were still smaller ones, but they had been lost by some little urchins, the priest's children, who had stolen them to play marbles with. Thus, we see how the spine of even the hugest of living things tapers off at last into simple child's play. And that concludes chapter 103 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Okay, so we saw that Ishmael was true to his word about not writing down the inches. Red Velvet Rabbit writes, bone marbles! Yes, indeed. Let's go ahead and we're going to empty our inventory here. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, or concerns about Ishmael's read of the whale skeleton? Centauratron says, should I take after Ishmael and get measurements of the red fox tattooed on my arm? I would say only if you measure them yourself. Because, like, if I met somebody who did that, if I met somebody who had the measurements of an animal on their arm, and they're like Ishmael from Moby Dick, I'd be like, awesome. Where was the skeleton that you measured? And was the person who owned it a king? So it's going to be really embarrassing if you just copy those measurements off Wikipedia instead of finding somebody famous with an actual fox skeleton. Because you're going to be asked about that constantly. So I say do it, but do it right is my guidance on that. LED says, my thought is bones. Good thoughts. Devin says, the whale invested all his points in length. And Verpitas says, min-max citation. Okay, so here we go. We need to grab a new pickaxe here. Silk touch. Pickaxe time. It's the pickaxe that we silk touch. Dee, dee. Devin says that wording is wild. A spine tapering off into child's play. Is this Fi says, what is this the kind of book I can tune into starting after chapter 103, or will I be lost? No, this book is so bonkers you can basically jump in whenever, especially because so much of the story of Moby Dick is kind of generally diffused into the culture. You know, it's the sort of thing they make fun of on Animaniacs, right? You get the gist of it even if you don't realize it. You know what I mean? But also, the storytelling is all over the place, non-linear, and there's just chapters at a time that are like a Wikipedia rabbit hole talking about whales. And that's what we're in right now, is we're in part of the talking about whales part. Where he's jumped ahead several years in the story to when he was hanging out with a king who owns a whale. Well, or at least the skeleton of a whale. And talking about how he had to get the tattoos, he had to get tattoos of the whale's measurements put on his arm, because in those days of his travels, he couldn't rely on being able to keep papers safe. Welcome, Rose Gold Doodle. Glad you could join us. Okay. So, the next chapter is chapter 104, The Whale Fossil. So we're going to update the what we're reading pin to reflect that. Okay. We are still, according to my calculations here, $18 away from our first face camera expansion of the stream. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. So let's pin that message. Welcome, McLeslie. And we're going to unpin after, manually unpin it into stream. Okay. So yeah, we're going to post the tipping link, and then we're going to start reading chapter 104. I like to read chapters that are kind of grouped together all in the same night. So these few chapters are literally all just him talking about, like, whale measurements and stuff. And then we'll get back to the story, the plot of the main Pequod Captain Ahab adventure after that. Chapter 104, The Fossil Whale. From his mighty bulk, the whale affords a most congenial theme whereon to enlarge, amplify, and generally expatiate. Would you could not compress him. By good rights, he should only be treated of in imperial folio. Not to tell over again his furlongs from spiracle to tail and the yards he measures about the waist. Only think of the gigantic involutions of his intestines, where they lie in him like great cables and hawsers coiled away in the subterranean orlop deck of a line of battleship. Since I have undertaken to manhandle this Leviathan, it behooves me to approve myself omnisciently exhaustive in the enterprise, not overlooking the minutest seminal germs in his blood, and spinning him out to the uttermost coils of his bowels. Having already described him in most of his present habitatory and entomological peculiarities, it now remains to magnify him in an archaeological, fossiliferous, and antediluvian point of view. Applied to any other creature than the Leviathan, to an ant or a flea, such portly terms might justifiably be deemed unwarrantably grandiloquent. But when Leviathan is the text, the case is altered. Fain am I to stagger to this emprise under the weightiest words of the dictionary. And here it be said that whenever it has been convenient to consult in the course of these dissertations, I have invariably used a huge quarto edition of Johnson, expressly purchased for this purpose, because that famous lexicographer's uncommon personal bulk fitted him to compile a lexicon to be used like a whale author like me. One often hears of writers that rise and swell with their subject, though it seems but an ordinary one. How then with me? Writing of this Leviathan, unconsciously my chirography expands into placard capitals. Give me a condor's quill. Give me Vesuvius's crater for an inkstand. Friends, hold my arms, for in the mere act of penning my thoughts of this Leviathan, they weary me, and make me faint with their outreaching comprehensiveness of sweep, as if to include the whole circle of the sciences, and all the generations of whales, and men, and mastodons, past and present and to come, with all the revolving panoramas of empire on earth, and throughout the whole universe, not excluding its suburbs. Such and so magnifying is the virtue of a large and liberal theme. We expand to its bulk. To produce a mighty book, you must choose a mighty theme. No great and enduring volume can ever be written on the flea, though there may be those who have tried it. Ere entering the subject of fossil whales, I present my credentials as a geologist by stating that in my miscellaneous time, I have been a stonemason, also a great digger of ditches, canals, and wells, wine vaults, cellars, and cisterns of all sorts. Likewise, by way of preliminary, I desire to remind the reader that while in the earlier geological strata there are found the fossils of monsters now almost completely extinct, the subsequent relics discovered in what are called the tertiary formations seem the connecting, or at any rate intercepted links between the ante-chronicle creatures and those whose remote posterity are said to have entered the ark. All the fossil whales hitherto discovered belong to the tertiary period, which is the last preceding the specific formations. And though none of them precisely answer to any known species of the present time, they are yet sufficiently akin to them in general respects to justify their taking rank as cetacean fossils. Detached, broken fossils of pre-Adamite whales, fragments of their bones and skeletons, have within 30 years past, at various intervals, been found at the base of the Alps, in Lombardy in France, in England, in Scotland, and in the states of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Among the more curious of such remains is part of a skull, which in the year 1779 was disinterred in the Rue Dauphine in Paris, a short street opening almost directly upon the Palace of the Tuileries, and bones disinterred in the excavating of the great docks of Antwerp in Napoleon's time. Cuvier pronounced these fragments to have belonged to some utterly unknown leviathanic species. But, by far, the most wonderful of all cetacean relics was the almost complete vast skeleton of an extinct monster found in the year 1842 on the plantation of Judge Craw in Alabama. The awe-stricken, credulous slaves in the vicinity took it for the bones of one of the fallen angels. The Alabama doctors declared it a huge reptile and bestowed upon it the name of Basilosaurus, but some specimen of bones of it being taken across the sea to Owen, the English anatomist, it turned out that this alleged reptile was a whale, though of a departed species. A significant illustration of the fact, again and again repeated in this book, that the skeleton of the whale furnishes but little clue to the shape of his fully invested body. So, Owen rechristened the monster Zeuglodon, and in his paper, read before the London Geological Society, pronounced it, in substance, one of the most extraordinary creatures which the mutations of the globe have blotted out of existence. When I stand among these mighty leviathan skulls, tusks, jaws, ribs, and vertebra, all characterized by partial resemblances to existing breeds of sea monsters, but at the same time bearing, on the other hand, similar affinities to the annihilated anti-chronicle leviathans, their incalculable seniors, I am, by a flood, borne back to that wondrous period, ere time itself can have said to begun, for time began with man. Here Saturn's gray chaos rolls over me, and I obtain dim, shuddering glimpses into those polar eternities when wedged bastions of ice pressed hard upon what now are the tropics, and in all the 25,000 miles of this world's circumference, not an inhabitable hand's breadth of land was visible. Then the whole world was the whale's, and king of creation, he left his wake along the present lines of the Andes and the Himalayas. Who can show a pedigree like Leviathan? Ahab's harpoon had shed older blood than the Pharaoh's. Methuselah seems a schoolboy. I look round to shake hands with Shem. I am horror-struck at this anti-Mosaic, unsourced existence of the unspeakable terrors of the whale, which, having been before all time, must needs exist after all humane ages are over. But not alone has this Leviathan left his pre-Adamite traces in the stereotyped plates of nature, and in limestone and marl bequeathed his ancient bust, but upon Egyptian tablets, whose antiquity seems to claim for them an almost fossiliferous character, we find the unmistakable print of his fin. In an apartment of the great temple of Dendera, some 50 years ago, there was discovered upon the granite ceiling a sculptured and painted planisphere abounding with centaurs, griffins, dolphins, similar to the grotesque figures on the celestial globe of the moderns. Gliding among them, old Leviathan swam as of yore. Was there swimming in that planisphere centuries before Solomon was cradled. Nor must there be omitted another strange attestation of the antiquity of the whale, in his own osseous post-diluvian reality, as set down by the venerable John Leo, the old Barbary traveler. Not far from the seaside, they have a temple, the rafters and beams of which are made of whale bones, for whales of a monstrous size are oftentimes cast up dead upon that shore. The common people imagine that by a secret power bestowed by God upon the temple, no whale can pass by it without its own immediate death. But the truth of the matter is, on either side of the temple, there are rocks that shoot 2 miles into the sea and wound the whales when they light upon them. They keep a whale's rib of incredible length for a miracle, which, lying upon the ground, with its convex part uppermost, makes an arch, head of which cannot be reached by man upon a camel's back. This rib, says John Leo, is said to have lain there 100 years before I saw it. Their historians affirm that a prophet who prophesied of Muhammad just came from this temple, and some do not stand to assert that the prophet Jonas was cast forth by the whale at the base of this temple. In this Afric temple of the whale I leave you, reader, and if you be a Nantucketer and a whaleman, you will silently worship there. And thus concludes chapter 104 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Okay. We're going to go ahead and keep offloading our stuff right now. Any thoughts on anything from that chapter? I know these chapters are not the most provocative, but I will say Devin Hendricks pointed out that when he starts talking about how great a book you could write about whales, and it would be very big book about whales, very great book. Devin Hendricks writes, Breaking the Fourth Whale, which I love. Thank you, Devin Hendricks, for sharing that. Keaton Red says, Fortress of Solitude reading party. Well, it's not really a Fortress of Solitude. This is intended to be a place for other people to come to. It's just not done. We're working on it. LED says he really wants us to know that whales are old and big. Welcome, Keon's Bishop. Ancient Deborah says, related, Leviathan by Scott Westerfield is one of my favorite books. First in steampunk trilogy with alternative version of World War I. Sadly, not in Project Gutenberg yet. Yeah, sorry, we only read public domain books here. Kiki says it's 3:27 a.m. Accidentally entered the HermitCraft website and saw someone was live. I went to see what Joe was doing and got a jump scare. I love all the hermits. Thank you, Kiki. Nice, who writes a nice vibe, by the way. Well, welcome. Yeah, so I'm reading Moby Dick. Every Saturday night, I read a public domain book or story or something. And we previously read all of Dracula, and now we have moved on to reading all of Moby Dick. So we just finished chapter 104. You don't have to have read the previous chapters to know what's going on in Moby Dick. Because, honestly, Ishmael barely knows what's going on in Moby Dick, and he's our storyteller. And he keeps getting sidetracked. We have had 3 chapters now in a row where he's just talking about whales he measured or fossils of whales. And you might think he's about to get back to the story, right? Right? Chapter 105, that's going to get us back to the story. It does not. Chapter 105 is, does the whale's magnitude diminish? Will he perish? So real quick, I'd like to point out that we are still $18 away from our first face camera expansion of the stream. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Kai Farem says, I got sidetracked reading the Wikipedia talk page for whale. Ooh, that actually does sound interesting, Kai Farem. Were there any particularly interesting things in there? You can tell us about it while I update the what we're reading pin, which is chapter 105 is what we're about to start. Okay. So let's see. We need to head back this way. I haven't really been keeping an eye on how much I'm mining, but let's assume we're doing good because we've broken like 4 or 5 picks. So, okay. Hey, we got our first tip of the stream rolling in from Kevin Zuckley. Thank you, Kevin Zuckley, for kicking us off. That gets us $2 past our next face camera expansion milestone. Please direct your attention to the screen because I'm about to expand. Just da-da-da-da. And we are going to lower the Joe Pasty now to 50%. Da-da-da-da. It is T. Joe Eckhillsberg time. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead. It feels like a lot of forehead. I'm going to put my hat on. I don't know if that's going to help, but there we go. That feels better. Okay. So, thank you very much, Kevin Zuckley. Kiki says, that's some serious dedication. I think I'll start tuning in. Awesome. Just so you know, we only do this every Saturday night. Saturday nights are the weird streams. All the other streams are perfectly normal. We gotta greet Scar real quick. Scar gets really upset if people don't greet him. Okay. Please don't yell in all caps. I'm gonna time you out so you have a chance to read the rules, beloved. Good luck. Glad to have you here. Hope you read the rules and stick around. We're about to read chapter 105 of Moby Dick, or The Whale by Herman Melville. But first, we're talking about the whale Wikipedia page, talk pages. Kai Ferem says there's so much drama in the talk pages. My favorite part is someone getting really annoyed because someone else suggested you could call a sperm whale a large dolphin. This argument took place in 2013. That's the great thing about Wikipedia, is the arguments will last forever. Nat says, can confirm the other streams are nothing like this. Joe goes insane on weekends. I wouldn't use those words because I'm not a clinician, but you know what? It's fair for other people. You might be a clinician. I'm not going to say. Okay. So, Centortron says, I wonder what Scar would say if he just showed up and started reading Moby Dick to him. He would probably start talking about Star Wars, and then we would never finish this book, and we would never finish our mountain. We have so much work to do on this Hermit Homedale project. We have been spending a lot of time working on the TCG game. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to help Beef, but I also need to get my own work done, so we cannot just go run away right now and bother Scar. Sorry, I would like to as well, but yeah, we're gonna be disciplined. Disciplined. Let's get down to business to read Moby Dick while we remove mountains with a silk touch pick. I'll store Popo stone in their yard so Etho can get it too. Build whatever his shop will soon do. Kinda lost the thing in there. Didn't really have a through line. Kinda kept the melody at least. I should probably get back to reading Moby Dick. Chapter 105, I guess we'll see. Inasmuch then as this Leviathan comes floundering down upon us from the headwaters of the eternities, it may be fitly inquired whether in the long course of his generations he has not degenerated from the original bulk of his sires. But upon investigation we find that not only are the whales of the present day superior in magnitude to those whales whose fossil remains are found in the tertiary system, embracing a distinct geological period prior to man, but of the whales found in that tertiary system, those belonging to its latter formations exceed in size to those of the earlier ones. Of all the pre-Adamite whales yet exhumed, by far the largest is the Alabama one mentioned in the last chapter, and that was less than 70 feet in the length of the skeleton. Whereas we have already seen that the tape measure gives 72 feet for the skeleton of a large-sized modern whale. And I have heard on whalemen's authority that sperm whales have been captured near 100 feet long at the time of their capture. But may it not be that while the whales of the present hour are an advance in magnitude upon those of all previous geological periods, may it not be that since Adam's time they have degenerated? Assuredly, we must conclude so, if we are to credit the accounts of such gentlemen as Pliny and the ancient naturalists generally. For Pliny tells us of whales that embraced acres of living bulk, and Aldrovandus of others which measured 800 feet in length. Rope walks and Thames tunnels of whales. And even in the days of Banks and Solander, Cook's naturalists, we find a Danish member of the Academy of Sciences setting down certain Iceland whales, Raydan sisker, or wrinkled bellies, at 120 yards. That is 360 feet. And Lachapede, the French naturalist, in his elaborate history of whales, in the very beginning of his work, page 3, sets down the right whale at 100 meters, 328 feet. And this work was published so late as AD 1825. But will any whaleman believe these stories? No. The whale of today is as big as his ancestors in Pliny's time. And if I ever go where Pliny is, I, a whaleman, more than he was, will make bold to tell him so. Because I cannot understand how it is that while the Egyptian mummies that were buried thousands of years before even Pliny was born do not measure so much in their coffins as a modern Kentuckian in his socks, and while the cattle and other animals sculptured on the oldest Egyptian and Nineveh tablets, by the relative proportions in which they are drawn, just as plainly prove that the high-bred, stall-fed prize cattle of Smithfield not only equal, but far exceed in magnitude the fattest of Pharaoh's fat kine. In the face of all this, I will not admit that of all animals, the whale alone should have degenerated. But still, another inquiry remains, one often agitated by the more recondite Nantucketers, whether owing to the almost omniscient lookouts at the mastheads of the whale ships, now penetrating even through Bering Straits and into the remotest secret drawers and lockers of the world, and the 1,000 harpoons and lances darted along all continental coasts, the moot point is whether Leviathan can endure so wide a chase and so remorseless a havoc, whether he must not at last be exterminated from the waters, and the last whale, like the last man, smoke his last pipe, and then himself evaporate in the final puff. Comparing the humped herds of whales with humped herds of buffalo, which, not 40 years ago, overspread by tens of thousands the prairies of Illinois and Missouri, and shook their iron manes and scowled with their thunder-clotted brows upon the sites of populous river capitals, where now the polite broker sells you land at $1 an inch. In such a comparison, an irresistible argument would seem furnished to show that the hunted whale cannot now escape speedy extinction. But you must look at this matter in every light. Though so short a period ago, not a good lifetime, the census of the buffalo in Illinois exceeded the census of men now in London, and though at present day not one horn or hoof of them remains in all the region, and though the cause of this wondrous extermination was the spear of man, yet the far different nature of the whale hunt peremptorily forbids so inglorious an end to the Leviathan. 40 men in one ship hunting the sperm whale for 48 months think they have done extremely well, and thank God if they at last carry home the oil of 40 fish. Whereas in the days of the old Canadian and native trappers of the West, when the far West, in whose sunset suns still rise, was a wilderness and a virgin, the same number of moccasined men, for the same number of months, mounted on horse instead of sailing in ships, would have slain not 40, but 40,000 and more buffalo. A fact that, if need were, could be statistically stated. Nor, considered all aright, does it seem any argument in favor of the gradual extinction of the sperm whale. For example, that in former years, the latter part of the century, say, These leviathans in small pods were encountered much oftener than at present, and in consequence, the voyages were not so prolonged, and were also much more remunerative, because, as has been elsewhere noticed, the whales, influenced by some views to safety, now swim the seas in immense caravans, so that to a large degree the scattered solitaries, yolks, and pods, and schools of other days are now aggregated into vast but widely separated unfrequent armies. This is all. And equally fallacious seems the conceit that because the so-called whale bones no longer haunt many grounds in former years abounding with them, hence that the species are also declining. For they are only being driven from from promontory to cape, and if one coast is no longer enlivened with their jets, then be sure some other and remoter strand has been very recently startled by the unfamiliar spectacle. Furthermore, concerning these last-mentioned leviathans, they have two firm fortresses, which, in all human probability, will forever remain impregnable. And upon the invasion of their valleys, the frosty Swiss have retreated to their mountains, so, hunted from the savannas and glades of the middle seas, the whalebone whales can at last resort to their polar citadels, diving under the glassy barriers and walls there, and come up among icy fields and floes, and, in a charmed circle of everlasting December, bid defiance to all pursuit from man. But as perhaps 50 of these whalebone whales are harpooned for one catch-a-lot, some philosophers of the forecastle have concluded that this positive havoc already has very seriously diminished their battalions. But though for some time past a number of these whales, not less than 13,000, have been annually slain on the northwest coast by Americans alone, yet there are considerations which render even this circumstance of little or no account as an opposing argument in this matter. Natural as it is to be somewhat incredulous concerning the populousness of the more enormous creatures of the globe, yet what shall we say to Harto, the historian of Goa, when he tells us that at one hunting the king of Siam took 4,000 elephants, that in those regions elephants are numerous as droves of cattle in the temperate climes. And there seems no reason to doubt that if these elephants, which have been hunted for thousands of years by Semiramis, by Porus, by Hannibal, and by all the successive monarchs of the East, if they still survive there in great numbers, much more may the great whale outlast all hunting, since he has a pasture to expatiate in, which is precisely twice as large as all Asia, both Americas, Europe and Africa, New Holland, and all the isles of the sea combined. Moreover, we are to consider that from the presumed great longevity of whales, they're probably attaining the age of a century or more. Therefore, at any one period of time, several distinct adult generations must be contemporary. And what that is, we may soon gain some idea of by imagining all the graveyards, cemeteries, and family vaults of creation yielding up the live bodies of all the men, women, and children who were alive 75 years ago, and adding this countless host to the human population of the globe, the present human population of the globe. Wherefore, for all these things, we account the whale immortal in his species, however perishable in his individuality. He swam the seas before the continents broke water. He once swam over the site of the Tuileries, Windsor Castle, and the Kremlin. In Noah's flood, he despised Noah's Ark. And if he ever saw the world again be flooded, like the Netherlands, to kill off its rats, then the eternal whale will still survive, and rearing upon the topmost crest of the equatorial flood, spout his frothed defiance to the sky. And thus concludes Chapter 105 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. So, any thoughts on that chapter? Monsieur Limpet writes, Guy did not want to believe that the whale's numbers were falling. The Quigs 101 says, say hi to Mumbo for my. For your what? For your dog? It's okay, don't worry. I'm not Mumbo's secretary, so I'm not going to do it either way. Kai for M says, in the Wikipedia talk page for whales, somebody in 2018 said that whether or not whales are fish depends on how you define fish, which they said in Moby Dick and is just as true today. Fair enough. There's a space whale in Futurama called Mobius Dick, says Centauratron. Would Scar tell us about space whales in Star Wars? Probably. There are cetacean ops in Star Trek. The Enterprise D had a cetacean ops in its technical manual, but we never saw it on the show because it was very expensive. But on lower decks, we actually got to see the cetacean ops guys. I think we're dolphins in that show, but the larger ships might have full whales. Okay. So let's go ahead and empty our inventory and swap out our pick. Elodie says it's tragic that podcasts didn't exist back then because Ishmael would thrive with a whale podcast. What up, it's your boy Ishmael. I got more whale facts for you here. I just got back from my drinking with my friend the King. Oh, they're belugas, says Mailman Dave. Thank you. Baby beluga in the deep blue sea. Okay, so how are we doing on pickaxes here? We have burned through 4 pickaxes so far tonight. Okay. And it is 9:53. Great, great, great. We are making great time. Okay. Do I have... music disc. Okay, yeah, I do. Wait, no, we also need an actual diamond. We're going to make a record player real quick. Since I don't want to get a copyright strike on this video, I need to make a record player in Minecraft and use that so I can take a quick hydration break. Bum, bum, bum. I can't use my own music on streams that we want to keep a VOD for. Okay, so let's go find a safe place to hydration break. We're going to turn night into day here as well. Bum, bum, bada bum, 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 bum. Overtired says more like ish whale. Okay. So we are going to put on our music, and we are going to set up the hydration break sign, and then we are going to BRB. Bump, bump, bump. Apparently that song is shorter than I thought. Sorry about that. I don't know how long cat is. If I knew... I do know how long whales are, though. We've been reading a lot about those. Is the disc still in there? Oh, cool. Well, whatever. You don't need silk touch for these, I think. Whatever, it's fine. Okay, let's put our record player and our record back in there right now. And we're going to take down that hydration break sign and turn the camera back on. If you are enjoying the stream, just as a reminder, we are $18 away from our next face camera expansion milestone. And tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. What do you think, guys? We have burned through 4 chapters about whales at a very aggressive pace today. Is everybody whaled out, or should we get back to the actual plot of the book with Ahab's leg, chapter 106? Korok Moss says, whales good. Monsieur Limpe says, we all came here for the whales, didn't we? Elodie says, thanks to Ishmael, I know so much more about the size and oldness of whales. Kai Ferem says, whale time, whale time, whale time. So it looks like the Twitch chat is the active chat tonight. Let's go ahead and pin that. Oliver Pruitt in YouTube chat says more whales. Okay, well, we're going to pin the updated link there as well. And we're going to post this here. Okay, so I'm going to take a sip of my drink here. Red Velvet Rabbit says, woo, go Twitch chat. Also, Twitch chat loves whales, confirmed. Yes, indeed. I need to fluff the pillow that I sit on real quick. This chair is a little bit short for this desk, but I can't afford a proper chair, so we're just using this one. Okay. That's not like a new problem. I've been using this chair for the whole time. Okay, so... yeah, let's see. Chapter 106. Ahab's leg. Ken Dreadful says, just got here, but I can confirm I love whales as well. Simply Lost says, yeah. Kiki says, this is not what I was expecting, but definitely a good hobby. Go whales. Nick Leslie has a whale emote. Mailman Dave says, I'm getting ready for the Patreon SMP Groundhog Day parade while we're taking this in, but I'm pro whale. Fair enough. Thank you, Mailman Dave. Okay, well, I'm glad. So we are going to plow forward. Let's take down that hydration break sign. Let me just make sure we haven't missed any messages from the hermits here. Nope, we're good. Sun isn't about to set yet. Okay. Let's, as the kids say, go. Chapter 106 of Moby Dick, or the Whale, by Herman Melville. Ahab's leg. The precipitating manner in which Captain Ahab had quitted the Samuel Enderby of London had not been unattended with some small violence to his own person. He had lighted with such energy upon a thwart of the boat that his ivory leg had received a half-splintering shock. And when, after gaining his own deck and his own pivot hole there, he so vehemently wheeled round with an urgent command to the steersman, it was, as ever, something about his not steering inflexibly enough, then that the already shaken ivory received such an additional twist and wrench, that though it remained still entire, and to all appearances lusty, yet Ahab did not deem it trustworthy. And indeed, it seems small matter for wonder that for all his pervading mad recklessness, Ahab did at times give careful heed to the condition of that dead bone upon which he partly stood. For it had not been very long prior to the Pequod's sailing from Nantucket that he had been found one night lying prone upon the ground, and insensible, by some unknown and seemingly inexplicable, unimaginable casualty, his ivory limb having been so violently displaced that it had stake-wise smitten, and all but pierced his groin. Nor was it without extreme difficulty that the agonizing wound was entirely cured. Nor at that time had it failed to enter his monomaniac mind that all the anguish of that then present suffering was but the direct issue of a former woe. And he too plainly seemed to see that as the most poisonous reptile of the marsh perpetuate his kind as inevitably as the sweetest songster of the grove, so equally with every felicity all miserable events do naturally beget their like. Yea, more than equally, thought Ahab, since both the ancestry and posterity of grief go further than the ancestry and posterity of joy. For, not to hint at this, that it is an inference from certain canonic teachings, that while some natural enjoyments here shall have no children born to them for the other world, but, on the contrary, shall be followed by the joy childlessness of all hell's despair, whereas some guilty mortal miseries shall still fertily beget to themselves for an eternally progressive progeny of griefs beyond the grave. Not at all to hint of this, there still seems an inequality in the deeper analysis of the thing. For, thought Ahab, while even the highest earthly felicities ever have a certain unsignifying pettiness lurking in them, but at bottom, all heart woes, a mystic significance, and in some men an archangelic grandeur, so do their diligent tracings out not belie the obvious deduction. To trail the genealogies of these high mortal miseries carries us at last among the sourceless primogenitors of the gods, so that in the face of all the glad haymaking suns and soft symboling round harvest moons, we must needs give in to this, that the gods themselves are not forever glad. The ineffaceable sad birthmark in the brow of man, but the stamp of sorrow in the signers. Unwittingly, here, a secret has been divulged, which perhaps might more properly, in set way, have been disclosed before, with many other peculiarities concerning Ahab. Always had it remained a mystery to some, why it was that for a certain period, both before and after the sailing of the Pequod, he had hidden himself away with such grand llama-like exclusiveness, and, for that one interval, sought speechless refuge, as it were, among the marble senate of the dead. Captain Peleg's brooded reason for this appeared by no means adequate, though indeed as touching all Ahab's deeper part, every revelation partook more of significant darkness than of explanatory light. But in the end, it all came out. This one matter did, at least. That direful mishap was at the bottom of his temporary recluseness. And not only this, but to that ever-contracting, dropping circle ashore, who, for any reason, possessed the privilege of a less band approach to him, to that very timid circle, the above-hinted casualty, remaining, as it did, moodily unaccounted for by Ahab, invested itself with terrors, not entirely underived from the land of spirits and of whales, so that, through their zeal for him, they had all conspired, so far as in them it lay, to muffle up the knowledge of this thing from others. And hence it was that not till a considerable interval had elapsed did it transpire upon the Pequod's decks. But, be all this as it may, let the unseen, unambiguous synod in the air, or the vindictive princes and potentates of fire have to do or not with earthly Ahab, yet in this present matter of his leg, he took plain, practical procedures. He called the carpenter. And when that functionary appeared before him, he bade him without delay set about making a new leg, and directed the mates to see him supplied with all the studs and joists of jaw ivory, sperm whale, which had thus been accumulated on the voyage, in order that a careful selection of the stoutest, clearest grained stuff might be secured. This done, the carpenter received orders to have the leg completed that night, and to provide all the fittings for it, independent of those pertaining to the distrusted one in use. Moreover, the ship's forge was ordered to be hoisted out of its temporary idleness in the hold, and to accelerate the affair, the blacksmith was commanded to proceed at once to the forging of whatever iron contrivances might be needed. And thus concludes Chapter 106 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Welcome, Kendersite Raiders! Welcome, Kendersite Raiders! Welcome, Kendersite Raiders! To Saturday night reading and grinding. We are playing Moby Dick and reading Minecraft. Scratch that, reverse it. We are playing Minecraft and reading Moby Dick. We are grinding out this mountain removal process. I hope you had a fantastic stream, Ken. I don't normally interrupt the middle of a chapter for tips or raids or whatnot, so I appreciate y'all's patience and probable befuddlement. Let's read back some of those comments. Ken Raid yells Bradley Ritchie. Ken Dreadful says, skill honed by years of chat moderation, in response to Bitter Buffalo 77 saying, wait, how do you read mine? Yep, that's it. Skill honed. Kendersite says, oh, what eyes you have. Yep, indeed. This is the T. Joe Eckhilsberg phase of the face camera expansions. If anybody is enjoying the stream and would like to support the arts and my work in particular, we are currently $18 away from the next face camera expansion by my Abacus account here. And tips are welcome via paypal.me/Joe Hills and YouTube Super Chat. Okay. So, any thoughts on Chapter 106, learning why Ahab had been previously so out of things? Apparently having some sort of psychological trauma response to the failure of his first false leg. And now that his current false leg has failed, instead of absolutely flipping out, he has simply called the carpenter and the blacksmith and told them to fix it. I'm sure that everything will go completely fine. Kaifer M says, and that's growth. Well done, Ahab. Elodie says, I think we should have another chapter about whale bones. Should we? I don't know. I kind of want to know what the carpenter's up to. We've read a lot of chapters tonight, but there are some more chapters in this book, it turns out. And the next one is called The Carpenter. What do you think? Should we sally forth into the world of carpentry? We don't know the carpenter's opinion about whale bones yet, says Elodie. That's true. We might learn his opinion on the bones, says Rose Gold. Very true. This next chapter, it looks like Ishmael is about to get poetic about the ship's carpenter. Okay, let's empty our inventory before we start the next chapter. Uh-oh, let's not go in the lava while we're getting things done as well. Okay, we're going to get some more boxes out of here first. Because we're in box deficit at this point. Knock him out the box, Luke. Knock him out. Knock him out the box, Luke. Knock him out. And we don't technically need a fresh pickaxe yet, but I don't want to interrupt this next chapter in the middle to get one. So we're going to swap that out as well while we're here. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Just as a reminder, this is a viewer-supported stream. If you enjoy me reading Moby Dick, it is deeply appreciated if you do choose to tip. We've had only one tip tonight, and I don't think I'm doing worse than usual. If I am doing worse than usual, feel free to tell me. But I actually think that I'm trying to bring a good energy to it. I feel like I have some good personal momentum going into this. I got a lot of great editing done earlier, hanging out with Badger and my daughter at a coffee shop. I'm liking these chapters, but yeah. It is kind of rare to go 2 hours and only get one tip. So on some level, I do kind of have to ask. Transit Biker says, oh, it's Tony Stark. Okay, we're going to turn night into day, and then we're going to start reading chapter 107, The Carpenter. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Did we update the... we need to update the pinned thing. Welcome, Scarlet Dragon. I'm just about to update the pinned chapter thing to what we're reading. 107, pinned message. Do the readings differ from building management things? Absolutely. The reading streams are where I do like the grindiest stuff, because I wouldn't be able to design redstone or buildings or lay out roads while doing this. Kevin Zuckley just tipped 18 and says, I just entered the nether, can't say much. Well, thank you very much for our second tip of the stream from the same generous contributor. Thank you, Kevin. That's going to get us evenly to the next face camera expansion milestone. So here we go. Expand. Just. Do-do-do-do. And good luck in the nether there, Kev. Lowering the Joe Pasty now to 42%. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. We are about to start reading that next chapter. So any other tips that roll in the middle of that, we will acknowledge at the end. We got one rolling in before we get started from Leslie for 5, who says, thank you, Joe. You're most welcome, Leslie. I do what I can. That gets us now 15 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Alrighty. And we got another 5 from MJ, who says, for giving us a whale of a time. Thank you very much, MJ. That gets us 10 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Okay. So, here we go. Chapter 107, The Carpenter. Seat thyself sultanically among the moons of Saturn, and take high abstracted man alone, and he seems a wonder, a grandeur, and a woe. But from the same point, take mankind in mass, and for the most part, they seem a mob of unnecessary duplicates, both contemporary and hereditary. But most humble though he was, and far from furnishing an example of the high humane abstraction, the Pequod's carpenter was no duplicate, Hence, he now comes in person on this stage. Like all sea-going ship carpenters, and more especially those belonging to whaling vessels, he was, to a certain off-handed practical extent, alike experienced in numerous trades and callings collateral to his own. The carpenter's pursuit being the ancient and outbranching trunk of all the numerous handicrafts which more or less have to do with wood as an auxiliary material. But besides the application to him of the generic remark above, the carpenter of the Pequod was singularly efficient in those thousand nameless mechanical emergencies continuously recurring in a large ship upon a 3 or 4 years' voyage, in uncivilized and far distant seas. For, not to speak of his readiness in ordinary duties, repairing stove boats, sprung spars, reforming the shape of clumsy bladed oars, inserting bull's-eyes in the deck, or new tree nails in the side planks, and other miscellaneous matters more directly pertaining to his special business, he was moreover unhesitatingly expert in all manner of conflicting aptitudes, both useful and capricious. The one grand stage where he enacted all his various parts so manifold was his vice bench, a long, rude, ponderous table, furnished with several vices of different sizes, and both of iron and of wood. At all times, except when whales were alongside, this bench was securely lashed athwartships against the rear of the try-works. A belaying pin found too large to be easily inserted into its hole, the carpenter clamps it into one of his ever-ready vices, and straightway files it smaller. A lost land bird of strange plumage strays on board and is made a captive. Out of clean-shaved rods of right whale bone and cross-beams of sperm whale ivory, the carpenter makes a pagoda-looking cage for it. An oarsman sprains his wrist. The carpenter concocts a soothing lotion. Stubb longed for vermilion stars to be painted upon the blade of his every oar, screwing each oar in his big vise of wood. The carpenter symmetrically supplies the constellation. A sailor takes fancy to wear shark bone earrings. The carpenter drills his ears. Another has the toothache. The carpenter, out the pincers, and clapping one hand upon his bench, bids him be seated there, and the poor fellow unmanageably winces under the unconcluded operation, whirling round the handle of his wooden vice. The carpenter signs him to clap his jaw in that, if he would have him draw out the tooth. Thus, the carpenter was prepared at all points, and alike indifferent and without respect in all. Teeth he accounted bits of ivory, heads he deemed but top blocks, men themselves beheld lightly for capstans. But while now, upon so wide a field thus variously accomplished, and with such liveliness of expertness in him too, all would seem to argue some uncommon vivacity of intelligence, but not precisely so. For nothing was this man more remarkable than for a certain impersonal stolidity, as it were. Impersonal, I say, for it so shaded him off into the surrounding infinite of things that it seemed one with the general stolidity discernible in the whole visible world, which, while pauselessly active in uncounted modes, still eternally holds its peace and ignores you, though you dig foundations in its cathedrals. Yet it was this half-horrible stolidity in him, involving too, as it appeared, an all-ramifying heartlessness. Yet it was oddly dashed at times, with a old, crutch-like, antediluvian, wheezing humorlessness, not unstreaked now and then with a certain grizzled wittiness, such as might have served to pass the time during the midnight watch on the bearded forecastle of Noah's Ark. Was it that this old carpenter had been a lifelong wanderer, whose much rolling to and fro not only had gathered no moss, but, what is more, had rubbed off whatever small outward clingings might have originally pertained to him? He was a stripped abstract, an unfractioned integral, uncompromised as a new-born babe, living without premeditated reference to this world or the next. You might almost say that this strange uncompromisedness in him involved a sort of unintelligence. For his numerous trades, he did not seem to work much by reason or instinct, or simply because he had been tutored to do it, or by any intermixture of all of these, even or uneven, but merely by a kind of deaf and dumb, spontaneous, literal process. He was a pure manipulator. His brain, if he ever had one, must have early oozed along into the muscles of his fingers. He was like one of those unreasoning, but still highly useful, multum in parvo Sheffield contrivances, assuming the exterior, though a little swelled, of a common pocket knife, but containing not only the blades of various sizes, but also screwdrivers, corkscrews, tweezers, awls, pens, rulers, nail filers, countersinkers. So, if his superiors wanted to use the carpenter for a screwdriver, all they had to do was open up that part of him, and the screw was fast. Or, if for tweezers, take him up by the legs, and there they were. Yet, as was previously hinted, this omni-tooled open and shut carpenter was, after all, no mere machine or automaton. If he did not have a common soul in him, he had a subtle something that somehow anomalously did its duty. What that was, whether essence of quicksilver or a few drops of hartshorn, there was no telling. But there it was, and there it had abided, for now some 60 years or more. And this it was, this same unaccountable, cunning life principle in him. This it was that kept him a great part of the time soliloquizing, but only like an unreasoning wheel, which also hummingly soliloquizes. Or, rather, his body was a sentry box, and his soliloquizer was on guard there, and talking all the time to keep itself awake. And thus concludes Chapter 107 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. Okay, it looks like I forgot to put the blocks in the box when I last flew by, so we're going to do that real quick. What'd y'all think of Chapter 107 about the carpenter? Real quick, we got a few other tips I really want to thank people for. Thank you very much to Miss Gold Fox for tipping 20, who says, I do love our reading stream. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. That gets us 10 past our next Space Gamer expansion milestone. So here we go. Please direct your attention to the search box so I can find my eyeball. Ah, there it is. See, Minecraft provides my eyeball in the box when I search for it. It's like magic. Woo! Thank you, Minecraft. But also thank you, Miss Gold Fox. Here we go. It's time to expand Joe. Wow, 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 wow. And we are going to lower the Joe Pasty now to Burr, a frigid 32% Joe Pasty. That is Fahrenheit, not Celsius. We also got a tip from Elodie. Thank you very much, Elodie, who tips another 20. So let's get that face camera expansion on the board and on the abacus there. We are 10 now away from the next face camera expansion milestone. So here we go. It's time to expand Joust. Expanding the Joust. Lowering the Joe opacity. Now to 24%. Woo! So if I search for eyeball at 24%, it stays there. That's real handy. Good job, Mojang. Good teamwork. Real quick, though, we did get a message from Elodie there, which I'm realizing my eyeball will move if I look at... Can I read that? Okay, if I move my head this way. Now it's still in the box while I look at that other screen. Elodie writes, "Hi, Joe. Back in October, you recommend I go see Goblin Macbeth. I wanted to let you know I did see it, and it was amazing. I would have told you earlier, but I got hospitalized a week after the show, so I haven't been around. Don't worry, though. I'm okay and not hospitalized because of the goblins. Thank you very much for the recommendation." Hey, I'm so glad you went to see that. Oh, that was such a fun experience for Badger Spanner and I. I am so excited that they have been well received by the community and are doing more shows, or have done more shows. They're probably, I think they probably wrapped up that particular appearance. But yeah, Goblin Macbeth. Elodie says Goblin Macbeth was great. I got second row seats. Oh, awesome! Right? That's like right in the action. I think we were up in the 4th or 5th row, but we were still pretty close. Badger shaking. What?
We were second.
Were we second?
We were above. We were the first row of...
Oh, because the way that they had... I guess, yeah, we were second. It was just because there was the weird ledge. I was trying to math it out. But yeah. Okay, cool. So thank you very much to Elodie. And then we also got another tip. Well, I got a ping, but it'll show up shortly. Okay. Elodie says, I hope they do Goblin Hamlet or Goblin Othello. I will say, seeing more Goblin theater is not the only reason that I'm going to go to Canada next time. But I think realistically, the next time I go to Canada, we will try to line it up with another one of their shows, because that was spectacular. And, you know, it was so fun for Badger and I to get to do that while we were waiting on the fiance visa to be approved. That's, you know, an opportunity to go see that crew again would be, you know, really... not just fun on its own merits, but also a fun throwback to that time of our lives. Okay, did that other tip... For some reason, the computer is not showing me. I'm going to manually pull up this tip on my phone. Sometimes on weekends, I think PayPal does, like, maintenance on, like, Saturday nights, because it does not do things as well on Saturday night sometimes. Thank you very much to Fia for tipping 10. Appreciate it, Fia. And so here we go. It's time to get that on the abacus here so we can expand Joe. Do. La 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 la. Expanding Joe. Okay. So that was, boy, I think we burned through 6 chapters of Moby Dick just now. The next 3 chapters seem to be kind of linked to each other. They're linked to this one too, but, like, this is probably the best breaking point. If we read one more chapter, I'm going to be like, well, let's do 3 more, and I don't think we have time for that tonight. But yeah. Thank you again to Fia for that 10. We're going to go ahead and call this last call for tips. I'm going to wrap up in a few minutes. Miss Dove says, what's Goblin Theater? It's this thing where these actors pretend to be goblins trying to demonstrate they understand human culture by performing Shakespeare. Let me see if I can find a... Does Goblin Macbeth have their own... Like, what is the name of their theater company? There's a bunch of theaters linking them. A spontaneous theater creation. So if I search for a spontaneous theater creation, or a spontaneous... Okay. Spontaneous Theater is the name of their company, I guess. So if I can find their... Yeah. So these are the guys who made Goblin Macbeth. They're spontaneoustheater.canada or .ca. It is really funny. It's hilarious. It's like, basically, the premise is, you know, we tried to prove to humans that we have culture, but you don't like our culture. So we're going to show you that we have culture by demonstrating we understand yours, and maybe you'll then try to understand ours better. But yeah, one of the guys played the blind Andorian in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, whose name I'm blanking on, because I always forget his name. And then one of the other people actually helped write some of Strange New Worlds, I think. So if you like humor and you like the sort of people who would work on Star Trek, this is a good... Bruce Horak, thank you. Thank you so much, Elodie. But yeah, this was a really fun night. I really enjoyed these chapters, and the next few are going to move forward pretty aggressively. We've got Ahab and the Carpenter coming up next week, as well as Ahab and Starbuck, as well as Queequeg and his coffin. And Queequeg's coffin is a major important thing in this book that we're going to see in detail. I don't know if he's referenced it before. Ishmael likes to drop hints at stuff like this and then forget about it for 70 chapters. But yeah, we're going to go check out Queequeg's coffin. I'm playing Java edition of Minecraft. Is this Fi says, I'm glad I could tune in. I feel like I've learned a lot about whales. Awesome. You know, it's all from the 1850s, so it's a little bit outdated, but yeah. Welcome, Staccato Comet. Glad you could join us. La da da da. We burned through quite a few pickaxes this stream. Boom. Oh no, that's the wrong box. Let's get the toolbox out. Yeah, there it is. So this stream, we actually managed to burn through 5 picks. That is not bad. Oh, wait. 5.5, really. Because one of those I didn't want to change out in the middle of a chapter, so I dumped it early. So we're going to dump these back into here, lay our head down and dream. Okay, so... Look at that. This was way more of an encroachment earlier. This is looking great. I'm so excited about this progress. I'm going to start working on the building proper again soon, but I couldn't do that during a reading stream because there's too much detail work to, like, free form. I can't build while I read very well unless it's, like, really predictable. Like, we're going to fill in this entire floor with the same block. You know, that I can read, or do it while I read, but yeah. Okay, any final thoughts on any of the books so far that folks want to share while we wait for final tips to roll in? Miss Dove says, do you have a specific schedule for when you do the reading streams? Those are always Saturday night streams. They're also the only streams that I guarantee VODs for because I don't use my music in them. I have a lot of problems with using my music in VODs and dealing with problems with copyright claims that are bogus. And it's a distraction from my real work to try and deal with that. So I just don't. But yeah, so on these streams, I don't play any music at the beginning, or on the hydration breaks, I'll use the in-game Minecraft music. So yeah, for anybody who hasn't seen my stream schedule, you can always find my stream schedule at joehills.net/soon, which I am going to post now. You'll notice Monday, midday, I'm going to have a very strange Satisfactory stream where the Joe Wrench steals Fixmas. Since the Fixmas event in Satisfactory has concluded, I'm going to go destroy Christmas, basically. But maybe in character? I haven't figured out how far I want to take that. But I've got a lot of driving to do tomorrow, so I'm probably just gonna be sitting there at the wheel cackling at terrible ideas. So we'll figure that out. But you know, as we say in HermitCraft, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Bum 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 bum. Bum bum bum. Dun 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 dun. La da 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 da. It's Joe Wrench. Okay, let's trash all of these blocks. We're not trashing them, we're saving them for later. This is... Oh, I forgot about this part. Yeah, that... Oh, boy. Yeah, we still got to deal with all this. We're still making progress, though. Scarlett says, wish I came here earlier. I like the stream. Well, no worries. I stream almost every day. Not quite. According to Twitch, in 2024, I streamed 320 days out of the year or something. Which felt low to me, but probably is about right. Because I think there were some days I didn't stream on Twitch. I streamed on YouTube. Knocking out all the stones. La da 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 da. Yep, if you look at that joehills.net/soon schedule there, that's got the rough schedule for next week. I'm usually adding streams as I kind of narrow down what I'm doing. I try to leave myself some gaps in there for recording collabs with other hermits and stuff that I can't do on stream. But then if there's like nothing pressing, a lot of times I'll add in streams as we go, depending on what I'm doing in terms of editing and other stuff too. I have gone through a lot of the footage for the next video. It's not coming out tomorrow, but I feel like 2 or 3 days from now is not unreasonable. Let's see, that would be... Yeah. But yeah, I'm feeling good about the next video's progress. I recorded a lot of great stuff with Etho, Cub, Scar, and Asuma for that next video, so a lot of fun collabs and pop-ins. So it should be good. Okay. Good night, Miss Dove. We're heading out shortly. Just giving that last minute tips a chance to roll in, since PayPal's been especially slow tonight. Okay. Plus, I really do want to just... I want to just get this whole terraforming thing done, so we can move on with the rest of the project. We got so much to do here. bum bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum ba da 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 da. Someday the terror will be formed, says Elodie. Yes, indeed. Okay. Good night, Stu, my guy. Okay. We're getting stuff done. Getting ready to follow the setting sun to bed. Book of Maps says, crafting the horror landscape of your nightmares. Call that terror forming. Yes, indeed. Hey, Barbie's little sister and Goran, welcome. We were reading Moby Dick tonight, but we've actually concluded our reading for the evening. We're just waiting for any final tips to roll in before I wrap up, so it's a perfect time to chat and catch up. What have you two been up to this evening? And do you have any projects that you mentioned you were working on that you're ready to announce publicly? Because if so, I'd be happy to share any links to that if you're ready for folks to get involved. We are currently terraforming this mountain over here. On the, let's see, this would be the northeast side of the building. Barbie's little sister says, good, things are steady for me. Awesome. So have you gotten any word on like auditions or stuff like that, or did you land something? Goran says, I do have exciting news, but I can't talk about it yet. Well, Goran, whenever you are able to announce it and the public might want to take an interest, feel free to DM me on Discord. I am happy to help get the word out. Barbie's little sister says, not landed anything yet, but still hopeful. Excellent. Well, good for you. Getting that first job out of school can always be a challenge. So glad you're keeping your head up. And Goran says, I have hope. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the first job I got out of school was paid so poorly. It probably, yeah, it caused, yeah, I probably would have been better off trying to find, like, probably would have been better off being unemployed for a few months and crashing at my parents and then finding a job that paid more. Like, my first job out of the university, I think my salary was like $22,000 a year. It was, you know, so it's like, boy, I'm glad I have an education that costs $40,000 a year so I could land a job that pays like $22,000. But it was one of those things where I didn't technically have a degree in the thing that the job was in. And so I basically got, like, a below entry-level position. And I was able to eventually argue them up to 46,000, like, 2 years later. Which, you know, jumping from, like, 22,000 to 46,000 is a pretty good raise, but that's how much they had undervalued me. But, like, at the time, I was just like, I just need something so I don't have to move back in with my parents and can have health insurance. Because this was also before you could get health insurance from your parents after you went to college and graduated and stuff. That didn't come until later. That coverage until you're 25 thing didn't exist when I graduated. So, yeah. So, yeah, just taking the first thing available isn't always the best thing. So, yeah, glad that you're maintaining hope, and good luck to you. Okay. Let's see what we got here. But yeah, Yeah, at the time, I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to hold down a full-time job because I was still recovering from, like, the initial hit of my digestive problems. So that was also kind of the thing, too, was I was like, I'm trying to prove to my parents and the world I'm not an invalid. So I'll take any job that will take me. Like, the people who hired me knew I had these medical problems, and I think that was part of why they were willing to give me... which was part of also why I needed the health insurance. But yeah, they were like, well, we're not sure how much work you're actually... Can you even do 40 hours a week worth of work? We'll give you the lowest salary possible, but you'll have health insurance, and we'll see what you can actually get done. So I do appreciate them taking a chance on me. It wasn't like, oh, this was purely predatory or anything. But, like... I was able to prove that I could do 40 hours a week worth of work. But then, you know, it was like, well, now I'm making almost no money. Okay. So we're going to drop off this pickaxe, and I think we're going to wrap up the stream here. Yeah, this was a very good Moby Dick stream. We got a lot of reading done. Got to say hi to Goran and Kelly at the end. So hope y'all have a fantastic evening. Hope everybody has a fantastic evening. Let's go ahead and see who we're going to raid. Are any states still doing their state tournaments? I haven't even heard yet who won Tennessee. Badger, did you get a message about who won Tennessee in the main? We're going to find out live. I'm going to turn your mic on if you don't mind.
Oh, okay, it's not actually facing me.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Give me 1 minute.
Okay. We're going to find...
It's still going.
It's still going. Who's it down to?
Jared and Tanner.
Jared, Eshelman, and Tanner Wade.
Yeah.
Jared recently moved to the Nashville area. Tanner Wade is a Memphisite. And they are apparently going head-to-head for the finals for the Tennessee State Pinball Tournament. Unfortunately, that tournament is not being streamed because the venue had an internet failure earlier today. So, if we do want to watch a state that does have their tournament being streamed right now, let's see, there's a few... Saskatchewan is live, but also DRI 374 is pretty cool and is streaming California's state championship from the Flipper Room. Let's go ahead and raid California's state championship. When you get over there, our raid message is, howdy y'all, Joe Hill's raid here. And let me go ahead and get this in there on the YouTube chat. Thank y'all so much. Until next time, y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee. Keep adventuring. Stop streaming. Stopping the stream.